Well, hello. I am Mr. Beats, and I'm joined by two guests in my studio, which is pretty amazing. I was like, we got a live stream, okay? So, and some of you are like, well, who the heck are these people? Well, I want to have them introduce themselves. So go ahead.
I'm Philip.
I'm Harry.
And we run Spectacles.
The channel Spectacles, not these spectacles. So go subscribe to them first and foremost. We have a collaboration coming up.
Yeah.
And that's why they're here. We're filming in front of the green screen. And we're excited to announce that the video collaboration deals with a really uplifting topic. Extreme wealth inequality and corporate consolidation. Yeah, what is your video specifically about?
Our video is just about, in particular, in the late 1800s, as industrialization took off and you had things like trains, telegraph lines, and all these other technologies, suddenly you saw the birth of the national corporation, which was not really a thing before then. And up until that point in American history, most of politics, most business regulation, most labor regulation all took place at the state level. And when you saw the birth of the national corporation and capital and the labor and industrial materials suddenly became really mobile, thanks to trains and other transportation technologies, it suddenly became really feasible for companies to play states off against each other for favorable regulatory treatment and favorable taxes. And so what you saw was a really abusive labor conditions and really low taxes on really, really wealthy people. So the issue was states couldn't regulate national companies. And today, we're facing a similar challenge. We've got multinational corporations that individual nations are having trouble regulating. And so we just sort of take a little bit of a retrospective look at how did that happen in the 1890s, the birth of the national corporation, and what can it teach us today about how to deal with multinational corporations, which is perhaps like the number one economic, political, regulatory challenge that we face today.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you're taking a sort of broader look at these similarities. How's that working for you?
Well, most young men, I think, are always thinking about the Roman Empire. I'm thinking about the 1890s. And so I read this book a couple years ago, initially, called The Reckless Decade, America in the 1890s by H.W. Brands. And basically, I just found myself thinking, this sounds really familiar. And so I'm finally making a video just straight up saying the 2020s are the 1890s. I've been telling folks this for a while. And I'm going to lay out, I think, 11 reasons I came up with, and 2 of them overlap with what you guys are doing with your video. So these videos will come out in 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
And we haven't finished writing this.
We haven't started writing the script yet.
Yeah, finished writing the script yet. But we've started putting things together. Really excited to release it for you all. You focus on Ireland. You're going to focus on Ireland a lot.
Yeah,
that's fascinating because everyone's like, and I'm hoping to go to Ireland, by the way. I'm planning a group trip to Ireland. Check it out if you want to join us. Just the fact that it's become so wealthy, but then a lot of people are like, oh yeah, look at that GDP. Yeah. Okay, what about GDP per capita? Let's look at other economic indicators here. Yeah. Is it really better? Is everybody in Ireland really better off because of their policy of essentially saying, we're not going to tax any corporations?
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. If you look at a graph of GDP over time for Ireland and you do it including all of these corporations that basically park their profits in the country, and then you do it X that amount, right? You take it out. It's just it's a very wide split. And it's an interesting question just to think about how people in Ireland feel about it. Presumably they see some benefit, in terms of maybe just some sort of whatever taxes there are, maybe help a little bit, but I guess they probably don't see a lot of it because they just aren't taxed very much. So it's very interesting. Yeah, Apple obviously is the big example of that, where I think all of their intellectual property is stored or is housed in Ireland. I don't know how you house intellectual property, but whatever the proper term for that is. And so it's very interesting.
Yeah, and that's why we learn history primarily is the lessons of the past. How can we learn from those lessons and apply them to today? Because clearly today things are not going well when we say that, though, like, I mean, okay, what are you talking about? Like, we're about to have the world's first trillionaire, for crying out loud. So surely, like, some things are going well. We have the latest gadgets and technology. AI has really taken off, and quality of life is going up in countries around the world, standard of living. So what is, like, your rebuttal to that? Is that, oh, well, hold up, like, this is maybe an illusion?
Well, it's interesting.
Maybe it's gilded even.
Gilded. Well, it's interesting because you say always we have these newfangled digital technologies, and it's like, well, at that time as well, right? People were experiencing total transformations in their lives because of new technologies, railroads you mentioned, right? New industrial techniques. But there were questions a lot about, how were the gains from those new technologies going to be distributed in society, right? One example that you and I have talked about a lot was the strike in Homestead, Pennsylvania in 1892, when there was a lockout of workers who were trying to unionize and strike. And the company, U.S. Steel, which was, I think it was U.S. Steel, Andrew Carnegie's company, at the Bethlehem factory in Homestead, Pennsylvania, they brought in strikebreakers. They brought in, the Pinkerton's detective agency. Eventually, the National Guard got involved. And what people were concerned about, we were just talking about this the other day, is they were basically, in a way, the workers who they were bringing in to work on these factory floors were kind of like gig workers in a sense, because they would have these sort of short-term gigs, more or less, where they would, they wouldn't have like guaranteed contracts for long-term employment. And so they were trying to, be able to get better working conditions. And it was all about this new technology, right? Because we had invented these crazy new ways of making stronger, better steel, right? Which was making all kinds of things possible. Go ahead.
And you didn't need permanent workers to do it.
Right.
It was the machines that mattered. And you just needed people who could come in, run the machine for a little bit. And you didn't care if it was the same guy tomorrow as today or yesterday. So there were no permanent long-term employment contracts. You came in the morning. Was there work for you? Was there not work for you? And you went home if there wasn't. And so it was really tough for workers.
Right.
The commodification of labor itself. And like, I think we probably should back up. The name of this stream is called Are We in the Second Gilded Age? And I should probably just remind some of our really smart audience where that term comes from. That phrase was first attributed to who other than Mark Twain? It's always freaking Mark Twain. The GOAT. Yeah, the best quotes come from Twain, who he wrote at some point in the 1870s. He wrote that he called it the Gilded Age essentially because it looks like it's gold. It looks so marvelous, but that's just a coat that's covering up the crap underneath it.
Yep.
And historians didn't start calling this period between 1870s and 1890s the Gilded Age until several decades later. But they had by that point realized, like, oh yeah, like there was a lot of innovation, a lot of good that came out of that time in terms of technological progress, but at the same time, the exploitation of workers in order to get there, extreme wealth inequality, etc.
Yep.
And now, believe it or not, we're like, this is not coming out of nowhere. We have a growing number of historians that say we currently are living in the Second Gilded Age.
Right.
They're still debating this, and so that's what audience, feel free to chime in as well. But are we actually in the Second Gilded Age? What do you guys think?
I mean, I think that the case is really strong. I think there are some differences and there are also some nuances in the sense that obviously there were these huge industrial advances that did make life better. And it's almost like a historical process where we have these technological developments. Maybe the distribution of gains from those are distributed unequally, but perhaps over time we can sort of correct from that. And so maybe, we are in a second Gilded Age right now where there's high levels of inequality. These new technologies are scary in some ways and exciting in others, but we can hope that as we go forward, we eventually, develop tools as a society, either through our governments or just through other practices, to make sure that everybody is benefiting. And so, I don't know if that's.
I think we have right now we have two interesting, historical anomalies happening right now. There are two stats that you can roll out that next to each other make it really clear that we are living in the Second Gilded Age, and that is the richest people ever in American history are alive right now. Like right now is the peak of individual wealth for a handful of people. No American has ever been richer than Elon Musk is right now.
Yeah, not even Rockefeller.
Not even close. Rockefeller doesn't even come close. JP Morgan doesn't even come close, these guys. So, okay. On the one hand, you're like, okay, people are rich. You got the richest guys ever. That seems to say, okay, it's a golden age. But it's gilded because you can roll out right next to it. Like, this is one of the very few times in American history that actually, like, household wealth is declining and people on a number of qualitative lines are looking to have less opportunity and be less wealthy and less successful than their parents were. So clearly we're not moving up together if we're doing worse than our parents did. If a handful of guys are doing really well and everyone else is actually lagging behind the last generation, yeah, that's a gilded age, I think.
Yeah, social mobility, I think, is another important economic indicator. This is the decline of social mobility, particularly in the last 2 decades. It's something that's not brought up that much, but it's important. Rising debt. I think there's a lot of people going around, yeah, you own a house. I mean, still the vast majority of Americans are homeowners.
Right.
You own a car. But then you really like, okay, do you really own it? You're taking out a mortgage, you're taking out a loan. And not just that, on top of that, we have medical debt, student loan debt, we have credit card debt. So I'm glad you brought up the point, like real wealth when it comes to assets. That has been declining. That is the more concerning trend, I think.
Yeah, let's hear what chat has to say.
We've got a super chat. If you have a super chat, we're trying to give you priority here. Oh, it's V-Man from Puerto Rico who always says something related to Puerto Rico. So, American flag, I will not salute you. If you symbolize a free and sovereign nation in Puerto Rico, you represent piracy and pillage.
Wow. Well, I mean, speaking of the 1890s, right? The Spanish-American War. That's another similarity. And I don't know if this is something you're going to be focusing on in your video, but I think we talked about it a little bit when we were discussing the collaboration. I mean, Puerto Rico obviously is in the Atlantic Ocean, but because a lot of the war took place in the Pacific and the Philippines, right? The threat of war in the Pacific is another similarity between now and the 1890s.
Well, but also just imperialism.
Right.
We straight up have imperialism, like literally with Venezuela overthrowing the...
Wait, what happened in Venezuela?
Yeah, you can't keep up with it, right?
I'm hearing this for the first time.
I mean, we're always reading history books, but like, it's so incredible that now we have an administration that's seriously talking about, okay, we're going to take Greenland by force. Maybe we'll take Cuba too. Maybe we'll take Colombia. So this is also reminiscent of the imperialism we saw in the 1890s. So I am including that in my video.
Okay.
Which, by the way, it's panning out really...
Yeah.
I hate to say the word nicely in comparison to imperialism. Because like before this year, we had I call it neo-imperialism, where you had like, you didn't straight up, like neoconservatism basically kind of complements that, where we're spreading democracy around the world. We're aiding people. We're not just straight up controlling. I mean, Venezuela is a weird situation because sure, the Maduro regime is still there, I guess. But what's next is the question.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is definitely new territory.
Yeah.
Or do I think the people who made the change really care what the answer is?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's really what that. Yeah.
So far as it affects Venezuelans.
Post-truth age. Okay, I like that. Yeah, growing inequality is a concern, but less so than people being able to just make beep up and face no repercussions. Yeah.
Yellow journalism.
I call it the misinformation age as well.
Right.
But that's another similarity to the 1890s.
Yeah.
Newspapers, yellow journalism. I mean, even with all the imperialism stuff that we were talking about, there was, if you read a Hearst newspaper about what was going on in the Philippines or in Cuba, you would get a totally different story than if you read a more progressive newspaper, for example, that would talk about American soldiers have done these terrible things. And in a Hearst newspaper, you get this story about how they're saving democracy in Cuba and in Philippines and how we were attacked. So like, I mean, different media, but I think in many ways the same story. It's like the whatever the medium is, there are going to be people who just use it to push their agenda, whatever that is.
And that was the first time we had mass media, because by that time the technology the telegraph had been in place for a while, and it was easy to just burst the same information out around the world.
Just like the total like compression of time, right, in terms of something like how information gets about, right? I mean, until in the 1890s, until recently, right, people relied on someone going by horseback and then by train, and then all of a sudden becomes so much faster. And just like a compression of time thing that's going on. And now, we're all on Zoom, right? Or whatever. So that kind of thing, it becomes so immediate. And that's another similarity for sure.
Misinformation travels faster than the truth, as they say. And this is backed up by evidence. I'm not just saying as they say. Man, it's a scary time. But I guess the Gilded Age can teach us that, hey, we got out of it okay. Well, have hope, because we also had the progressive era that followed it.
That's right.
Where you had reforms, and there's a lot of doomers in the chat. There always are.
Non-consecutive presidents, yeah.
Yeah, both periods had non-consecutive presidents. Yeah, and Grover Cleveland's second term did not go that well compared to his first term at all. That's a really good... Yeah, Cleveland was not an imperialist. He was a Bourbon Democrat when they were very non-interventionist. He didn't even want the United States to have anything to do with Hawaii.
Right. I remember reading a speech when you and I were doing some research on a Hawaii topic.
I
read a speech
he had
that he gave
very
to Congress,
cool speech.
and he was like, we should not be doing this. Obviously, with the Democrats at that time as well, to be fair, like part of the reason they didn't want like to add new parts was because they were like, we don't want to add brown people like to the like body politics.
That was real.
I don't know if that was Cleveland.
Imperialist. Except for not Cuba.
Yeah,
no.
Right. I don't know if that was Cleveland's worldview. I don't remember, but for some Democrats, I think that was the case.
Andrew Johnson probably.
Sure. Right.
Yeah. Thank you for the super chats, by the way. I did a video comparing... Oh, this is history buffs. Okay. Wow. Well, thank you, history buffs. I did a video comparing the two eras and noted wealth inequality, new technology, and political division as the three similarities between today and the Gilded Age. All right, we'll check that out. Yeah. Also, like, for those of you who watch spectacles, maybe, like... Harry, who are you? Like,
who am I? That's a great question.
You've probably never seen me.
If you've ever seen a spectacles video, of course you've seen Philip's beautiful face.
You've seen the invisible hand of Harry in the background.
The invisible hand of the
Explain the process of how you guys make videos.
Yeah, well, we write our videos together. We conceptualize and write them together, and then Philip handles the on-camera side of it, and he does like the animations or the designs of some of the models you've seen of some of our recent videos, and I edit the videos. I do the sound design, and that's pretty much it. And sometimes I write a little bit of music for each video.
That's right.
That's awesome. Do you write music for your videos? Because I know you're
like I kind of recycle through them, like songs I recorded 15 years ago. I'm still using the instrumental version.
Right.
But those 3D models are just, that's the next level stuff. I think just keep doing. I know it's probably a pain in the butt, but
it is. It is. I've told Harry knows how this works in the back end, but if any of you have seen our video on the White House or on housing, where we have all these 3D printed models, because we really wanted to emphasize that like these videos are made by human beings, not by AI, and so we have these on-camera presentation with models. But those models, I kind of have to run my 3D printer like 24 hours straight for like 3 days because it can only print so quickly, and I have to get all these models done. And so for like 3 days prior to filming, I'm waking up 2-3 times in the night to take the model off the printer and start the next file going. So it's it is a pain in the butt, but the end product is always really fun to do the presentation, and people get a kick out of it. So it's worth it. But it's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, this person is getting us back on track with the second Gilded Age. You mentioned that deregulation took place during the Gilded Age. How comparable is it to the deregulation happening now? How does the addition of the United States retreating
from the UN?
Oh, from the UN. Okay. Well, let's take the first question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's interesting because one difference maybe is that at the time of the Gilded Age, as I think Philip was saying a little bit at the beginning, is that there just weren't that many regulations at that point, right?
Yeah.
It's like we didn't have the sort of regulatory infrastructure in place. And nowadays, it's interesting. I think there have been obviously so there's been tax cuts, right? And some deregulations sort of, bundled up with the one big beautiful bill or whatever they call it. But there's also ways in which I think the economy has gotten more regulated. There's a paradoxical element there because like the state gets stronger in some ways, right? I mean, tariffs I would consider, right? Those are not regulations exactly, but they certainly constrain what people can buy, consumers can buy, and how companies can invest and plan their businesses. So it's interesting. Maybe there's some more regulation now in some ways. And then less, obviously, I think, in others with the legislation. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, tariffs are higher. Like the tariffs of the 1890s were comparable. Like that's the highest effective tariff rates the United States ever had was the 1890s. And that's the direction we've been going in the 2020s.
And how did that end up?
Not good. Although, to be fair, like pretty much we call it the Long Depression.
Yeah.
1870s all the way to the 1890s. During the Gilded Age, you had like deflation, which is kind of hard to imagine today, but this was a big problem for those trying to build up wealth back then.
Right.
Unless you already had lots of wealth, like it really hurts you. And so this is why you had a huge debate between those who favored the gold standard versus bimetallism. Yeah, like shout out to Silver Dick from Representative Bland from Missouri. Best nickname ever of a politician. Like free silver movement. The whole populist movement was that really got big in the 1890s. Started because of the free silver movement because they wanted inflation. They wanted inflation. So that's not like today, I guess.
Right.
But the same thing with the tariffs. But back to your point about deregulation,
right.
I think the weird thing about it is, the infrastructure's in place. Like back in the 1890s, there was nothing.
Right.
When a state tried to have a minimum wage, the Supreme Court struck it down in 1905. So, like in some ways, what's crazy is that if we do get rid of a lot of the regulations, things might get more prosperous. But at the same time, we've been on that track for so long, like at the federal level anyway, since the Carter administration, we've been in the deregulation era. And so I think it's one of those things where I think at the local level, perhaps you can argue there's too much regulations, but at the federal level, there needs to be more. So it's where the regulations are.
Yeah. Some sort of policy then. Yeah.
Oh, there's a second part of that question too. We didn't answer. Do I have any? What about your thoughts, Philip, about the United States retreating away from from internationalism?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really important for our video, which is all about how today the big challenge we face is now the fact that there are these multinational corporations, which are really difficult for individual countries to regulate, just like national corporations were for individual U.S. states. And so I think that the answer we found in American history, if you were able to time travel back to, or even just look back at what people were saying in the 1890s, knowing what happened and knowing how individual states just couldn't regulate national companies. If somebody in the 1890s said, you know what we should do? We should actually make it so that there can be no national corporations. They should have to only be in one state. They can't go beyond one state so they can be regulated. Now, with hindsight, we can say that would have been a terrible idea. I mean, it's a good idea as long as you're okay being like really, really poor 50 years down the line. But like, if you want to continue progressing at pace with the rest of the world and all these other things, and you actually want to have innovative technologies and innovative medicine and all the other things that come from quote unquote progress, you can't go backwards. You can't stop that economic process of expanding the boundaries by artificially drawing lines on a map. And Trump's retreat from the world is basically an attempt to do exactly that. It is to say, let's roll the clock back. Companies got to come back here. They got to be in America. to hell with this whole world trade thing. And like, look, I think globalization, world trade, free trade, all these things, they've been a mixture of good and bad. And unregulated, they've caused a lot of harm to a lot of people. And without a social safety net at home, they've caused a lot of harm to a lot of people. But like the idea that you can roll back the clock and say, actually, we're just going to be an island on ourselves, it's foolish. It's just as foolish as it would have been to say that about states in the 1890s. So the answer really has to be some form of multinational cooperation between states to regulate these companies, because right now the companies are in charge.
Yes.
They're bigger than the countries and they're calling the shots. And so unless you can build teams and work together, you're hopeless. It's just,
that just means a one world government. Alex Jones was right.
Well, this is a funny thing. Because this is one of those things where if you were to time travel from some period in the past, you know nothing about contemporary politics, but you know sort of what the world looks like, and you were just listening to different political commentators and you were trying to judge without bias who's like perceptive about things. There are, particularly with this like multinational corporation challenge, there are moments where you're like, whoa, did Alex Jones just say something like half intelligent? And then he follows it up by saying, we should retreat from the world. It's like, okay, no, dude.
No, he's always been pretty solid at acknowledging, like pointing out the problems.
He is perceptive.
Is not good.
He's perceptive, but he's crazy.
Yeah, the solutions, like, I think that people do get wary when you talk about governments all uniting around the world, but for obvious reasons. I mean, governments, they're the ones that have military might. They're the ones who have surveillance capabilities. And however, go ahead.
No, and why don't we get as wary about companies uniting all over the world? Companies
that can already surveil us and they can have their own private militaries. Yes.
It feels like, why are we so angry?
Where do you think the robot dogs are going to come from? The U.S. or Chinese military or Amazon? Like that's you got to think about these things.
Absolutely.
And government, in theory, is supposed to represent us, ordinary folks. I don't remember being a shareholder of Amazon. Okay,
and of course, if you were a shareholder, your vote only counts for as much as you own. Somebody who owns more than you gets more of a say.
Yeah.
And it's not supposed to be that way, at least in a democracy. Everyone gets an equal say, at least hopefully.
One of the many flaws of capitalism, but democracy has flaws too. Hey, look, we like nuance. I will look that up, V-Man. See? Eugenio Maria de Hostos. Check them out. Yeah, I've learned a lot from V-Man.
Citizen of the Americas.
It feels like we are living in a time when one's feelings are viewed as facts. When something invokes big feelings as someone, it equals facts to them. So this is back to the misinformation age, post-truth age.
Right. Yeah,
absolutely.
There's I don't know if it's a whole video on this subject, but there's at least a section of a video. I think it's part of his video, The Future of Reason. Vsauce did a video.
Oh, wow.
And he talks about this concept about the origins of human rationality and the blurred lines between whether rationality developed as a tool to decipher truth or as a tool to discover preferential environments. And so how feelings actually are the root of human rationality. We developed reason because we have feelings about things. And so we wanted to be able to reason about the world to predict, to avoid things that were going to make us feel bad. So it's one of those tricky things about how we reason, the way our brains work. It is feelings all the way down.
And you mentioned Vsauce. I'm sorry, I got to bring up the Kansas connections that we all have.
Yep.
That's how we first because I saw the KC flag in the background of your videos. And so Phillips here is from Kansas City, and I'm from Lawrence, not that far from Kansas City. He got the Kansas City Cup here. And Vsauce, who was a big inspiration for my channel.
Yeah.
I got to meet him a couple times, but my in with him was I used to teach at the high school he went to.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, Blue Valley High School. Shout out to Blue Valley High School in Overland Park. So Kansas connections, baby. Well, you're on the Missouri side, but barely. You're barely State Line Road, right?
Well, you guys got the team now, so.
And you're then hanging out in Kansas, Missouri.
I spent some time. I spent some time in Missouri and Kansas.
Okay. He's from California, which beautiful
Yeah.
place. Beautiful.
California stand.
Not much into politics.
But I feel like both parties have been having issues.
Yeah.
That about sums
I
it
think
up.
that's about right.
Same thing. Same thing with the Gilded Age, the first Gilded Age, which I do argue that we're in the second Gilded Age as well. I think what you saw happen in the 1870s, 1880s, voters they're frustrated with the whole system. They're voting for one side after 4 years, like, well, screw this, and go to the other side. They're going back and forth. You have these back and forth elections.
Right, because it was Cleveland, then Benjamin Harrison was Republican, then Cleveland,
Cleveland
then
again.
McKinley. So we'll have had, depending what happens in 2028, we'll have had 3 one-term presidents in a row. Well, Trump is a 2-term president. He's only served 1 term at a time.
You guys know the channel Horses?
Oh, I love horses. Hell yeah.
Talking about my arms. We need to collaborate sometime.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You guys need to.
Yeah.
Like some of the best videos I've seen on this platform.
Legit. So good.
On YouTube, anyway. It's like a very unique style, but they're basically like deep philosophical videos. Subscribe to Horses. Wow, thanks for that generation too. It's raining outside.
Yeah, it was crazy this morning.
Do you guys think CEOs have too much power? I mean,
well, as the CEO of a small business,
I have an LLC as well. I'm not the CEO, but no, yeah. Like the thing is, the shareholders kind of put up with it. It's up to the shareholders, right? I mean, not really up to consumers theoretically.
Yeah.
But at some point, we have. I feel like another aspect of the first Gilded Age was like a shrinking of competition because of collusion between those in government and giant corporations. And now it's not even. I think a lot of people that work in government want to limit these multinational corporations, but like you were saying, they just can't.
Yeah. It's a question like of how much power do they have outside of their companies? How much power do they have over politics? And I think like the case that sort of we make in our video is they have a huge amount of power over politics,
especially
these days.
Buying up media companies now. Larry Ellison, obviously Musk buying up, even though I think Twitter's influence is overrated.
It was Larry Ellison or somebody. There was a conservative group that just bought Dominion voting systems too.
Yep.
So we're on the best timeline, folks.
That's so funny.
But yeah, when you're bigger than the countries, you're bigger than the government. I mean, in 1901 or 1910 or something like
1901.
that? In 1901, U.S. Steel was worth more than the U.S. Treasury.
Yeah.
Like they were bigger than the U.S. government.
And around that, a few years before that, J.P. Morgan like literally loaned federal government money.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we're getting to a point where those numbers are looking similar again. If you put Musk, Bezos, and Zuck combined, they are worth more than the Treasury of the United States.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, there are people that we got to address the doubters to say we're not living in a second Gilded Age because if you do look at the bottom 50%,
right,
there are a lot more people that have at least some kind of asset compared to 140 years ago, 30 years ago, the Gilded Age, like because back then they had nothing,
right?
So at least now there's a lot of people like say, you're you work in the school as an elementary school teacher. Maybe you have a mortgage, or maybe you own a car.
Yeah.
You get some kind of pension, maybe with your school district. You're never gonna have it. You're never gonna be able to, take a vacation to, Fiji or something. But you're still way better off as far as your average person in the 1890s.
Yeah.
That same. Yeah, so I guess that's the counter argument is the people at the bottom aren't quite, they don't have it as bad as the people at the bottom in the 1890s.
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, I think that's always worth remembering because, like, I know as bad as it can feel today, and I feel bad about it all the time. I like modernity, right? Like, I think we've come very far, and I like that we have access to all kinds of modern conveniences. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, because you're talking about just like people's absolute position today, right? Rather than like they're like in terms of like what's the level of inequality when you're looking. I think I saw some of the people in the chat commenting about this, right? It's like people aren't in like living in abject poverty. I mean, some people in the United States are living in abject poverty, and that's terrible, and something we want to do about it, but not as many as in that time. And so I think that is a good point, and it's worth remembering. It can be easy to bash on how things are going today for very obvious reasons, but it is also important to remember. It's like, yeah, there's some things that are going right.
But I think this sort of response that I would have is like, to the counter argument is, yeah, and in the 1890s, the probably the baseline of poverty was a lot better than it was in the 1700s. Like the relative progress is great, but like you got to look at the condition you're at and the potential you have. Right. If you look at the potential you have for the condition of life more people could be in.
We have the potential to just take a vacation to space.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if you have enough money, you can just fly to space.
Well, and yeah. So if you look at where could we be versus where we are at any given time, that to me is more important than where have we been and where are we now. That is important. But like, if we're trying to judge how well are we doing at the present moment, it has to be where could we be and where are we? And I feel like we are so far behind where we could be as Americans. And we're just, so many people are treated so much worse than they could be in the name of, just
progress.
Another richer guy than there's ever been in history. Just add one more to the list. I mean,
there are those that just unapologetically, like, they just cheerlead any kind of technological progress, no matter what the negative externalities are, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, because their argument is always, well, ultimately everyone will be better off. Ultimately, AI will make it so that none of us will have to work. All of us can pursue our passions,
And Eli Whitney thought the cotton gin would eliminate slavery. I mean,
oh man,
really?
1790s, yeah. This is cool. A student, Austin. I actually had a class debate over. You say Carnegie, I say Carnegie. Today, out of the robber barons back then, which are the most similar to the ones today? That's a great question.
That is a good question.
I don't know the robber barons well enough.
I think the interesting one, Andrew Carnegie was truly self-made, right? He grew up poor in Scotland.
Right? I made a video about him.
College educated, yeah. So I don't know how many of ours today.
Well, I will say that Carnegie gets a better reputation than most of the so-called robber barons, because he gave 95% of his wealth away by the time he died.
Yeah,
and compare that to today. You have a couple examples, notably Warren Buffett, Bill Gates as well, have both pledged to get rid of pretty much all their wealth.
I think Warren Buffett pledged 99%.
Oh yeah, he didn't give his kids hardly anything.
Yeah.
Hardly anything. His kids, I'd be very mad. Well, maybe $50,000. But yeah, like, I don't know. There are always going to be. I think when we talk about class warfare, like, I just hate all the billionaires. If you're a billionaire to begin with, you're unethical. Well, but also, like, there's a lot of people that they do gain power by doing shady things. I always just automatically think of Lyndon Johnson. Like, it's just like he was like a shady guy. He like was a backstabber, and he was a bully. He was a straight up bully in the Senate. But then, he worked his way up to power, and look what he did. He did he spearheaded Medicare, Medicaid, public housing, a lot of these programs that that really are part of the social safety net today. And so, like, ends justify the means.
Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, civil rights alone. Holy crap. Yeah. Like, JFK didn't really have much to do with that at all. That was all LBJ, the civil rights legislation. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what's a good comparison. Yeah, I think that's true, right? You don't have to be, you certainly don't have to be a billionaire. You can just power in general, I think, right, is what is the unifying thing. It's a desire for power and desire of influence over people.
What you do with that power.
Right. But it also has this sort of, corrupting temptation. I think that's sort of a truism, so people know that. But
a lot of people that still defend Elon Musk.
Right.
He's going to save humanity.
Right.
He still has, it's Kool-Aid, but still, they truly believe it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also, you think with those people, like, you have to give. I mean, I don't know what happened to Elon Musk because
We were just talking about this yesterday.
Yeah, he didn't used to be like this.
Yeah, he didn't used to be like this, and everybody he was like publicly admired, and I think like he actually did a lot of work. Obviously, he made a lot of money from it, but I think that is one of the virtues of capitalism is that like he made a lot of money making electric cars cool, and everyone wanted a Tesla, and now you see them all over the place, and so I think that's a good thing, right? I mean, they're good cars, and I don't know, but it's just I think maybe his encounter with politics sort of brain poison, spending too much time on Twitter. I don't know what it was, but I don't think it's inherently true that like. That if you're a billionaire, that means you're automatically evil. And it's also true what you're saying. It's like there are various routes to power and people can abuse it in all kinds of ways that don't require them to be rich. I don't think LBJ certainly was not born rich. He was born in relative, not poverty, but he wasn't born super wealthy. And I don't think he like made a ton of money over the course of his life.
Not until he got married into it. Yeah.
Right. So, it's multidimensional. Yeah.
We have a lot of super chats here, and before I wrap it up here in a few minutes, thank you all for doing for the super chats, and thanks for being here. Greetings from St. Louis. Nice to see you all together on a live stream. What do you think is the most urgent reform to improve democracy in the U.S.? We were just talking about this at lunch. Yeah, I think that it's uncapping the House of Representatives. I think all other reforms can't happen until you first solve the representation crisis. I call it a crisis because you have so many people in power that are out of touch and have no connection with their constituents. And the system is kind of built that way. The incentives are to satisfy the donors versus satisfying the constituents mostly. And so, uncapping the House, obviously ending gerrymandering and getting rid of plurality voting. These are other things, but I'm starting with uncap the House.
Yeah, I like uncapping the House a lot because it's, as we were saying, it doesn't require so many things like reforms that people would want to see. Like some people are like, abolish the Senate or something like that to improve democracy. And, I'm not against that. But that would require like a constitutional amendment, and that's not going to happen anytime soon. And so if you're thinking about what's really on the table, I would like to see us, and this actually is not mutually exclusive with uncapping the House, moving us towards a system of more proportional representation, either ranked choice or proportional representation. Those would be, I think, really good for making people feel more represented in democracy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, my first choice was going to be voting system reform, approval voting. But
I love approval voting.
Yeah, we love approval voting. But you mentioned voting reform. You mentioned uncapping the House. So I'll take something different, which would be, and this is, okay, so mine will be a real pipe dream concept, which is parliamentary system in America. I think we need to get rid of the presidency. There is very little historical or scholarly evidence that suggests that having a presidency does anything valuable for you. It was a nice idea. The Federalist Papers, they made a pretty good argument, but I think history has been unkind to the idea that the presidency is a good institution in a democracy. And it does seem like parliamentary legislature is the way to go.
Especially looking at how powerful the president has gotten consistently.
I actually think that's another one is just like, if we get through this mess, like Congress needs to take steps to actually put real constraints on the power of the president. Otherwise, this is just going to happen. It could be a different party. It could be the Democrats next time, but someone is going to come in and abuse those powers because they're just there now.
Yep.
Very good answers there. First of all, your channel, go Tar Heels. What? No. What are your thoughts on tech companies, AI infrastructure? Oh yeah, like data centers and their impact on rural communities. That's a good question.
Yeah, I wish I knew more about these things. I regret to say that I don't follow them super closely.
Same.
I think some technological developments, they happen, and we have to find the best ways to, make them benefit society. And clearly there are issues with AI that are unsolved, whether we're talking about how it functions in the education system or the data centers or anything like that. So that's,
If I can plug like one, this is not really AI infrastructure and impact on rural communities, but if we're talking a lot, YouTube, one of my favorite videos on the subject of AI, We're Not Ready for Superintelligence, video by AI in Context. Go check it out. Really, really good video.
That keeps getting recommended to me.
Yeah, it was really eye-opening, I thought. But sad to say, I'm in Harry's boat. This is not something I follow super closely, not something I'm well read on.
It seems at first glance to me, it seems really bad. But also, I think the thing that when we talk about cyber terrorism, we always think about like, oh, hackers online breaking into sites, platforms. But, I think these data centers are going to be giant targets.
That's an interesting point.
Like when they destroy these rural communities and people are going to obviously blame them. There'll be another scapegoat. And so I feel like they'll have to be heavily secured. Yeah. And they're not easily to secure a giant facility.
Enter the Pinkertons.
Yeah, Pinkertons, Gilded Age.
We'll get our own soon here enough.
This person says about Elon Musk, he's unwilling to accept his trans daughter and blames Democrats and wokeness for her gender change. That's what happened to Elon. Yeah. Is that it?
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, well, I also think a big part of it is just that he was, a billionaire. There's a lot of money and power to be made and making a rightward pivot. And maybe that was a sort of either conscious or unconscious way of rationalizing the behavior, was this sort of quote unquote traumatic sort of moment in his life. But who knows?
How do you feel about ICE as a Gestapo, age limits on presidents, and what? Well, we got a triple question. Yeah. And what example do you think Zoran Mamdani will set for the country in this tense period?
Why don't you lead?
Well, the last question, I think my video that comes out tomorrow, look for it. It's about the 7-party systems. I say yes. I think we're currently in the 7-party system, and I think Zoran Mamdani is part of that as far as evidence. Somebody like him never would have got elected as mayor of New York City, even 10 years ago, I would argue. But I think the effect of someone like Bernie Sanders, AOC on the Democrat left-wing side, but on the flip side, Donald Trump on the right-wing side, there's just this overwhelming shift of direction as far as this resistance to whatever the establishment is, whatever the elites are, whoever the status quo is. It's very ideologically messy, but I feel like that's the times we're living in now. So you're going to continue to see outsider candidates run for office, outsiders get in. When I say outsiders, it doesn't mean like they're political outsiders. They may have public service experience, but they don't fit neatly into a box like previous candidates did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You guys want to do age limits on presidents?
I think that age limits on public officials is clearly a good idea at this point. I don't know how you work through that, because there is a genuine, I think, discrimination problem.
Well, you have to be 35 to be
required.
Right, that's true. There are age requirements. That's true. So maybe not, but I would be for, I think, just after the last 10 years of public life in this country, between 2 presidents and like a lot of very old congressional leaders and officials, I think it needs to be something that's on the table. I don't know exactly how, because I like the idea of having sort of graybeards who really know how the system works and know how to like get things done. And in Washington, I don't think that's something that's always bad, right? Like people, I think, are always like pro outsider and anti like insider establishment. I do think there's something to be said for experience, but I also think clearly the last, I would say, 10 years or so of American public life have not reflected well on the aged leaders that we have.
Yeah. I mean, I think just we were talking about AI just a minute ago, just things are changing too quickly. Where you draw the line exactly, tough, but draw it anywhere sub 80 and or sub 75, and it'll be imperfect. We'll make some mistakes, but we have to do something because things are changing too fast.
You're both under the age of 30.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that means every president of your lifetime was born between the years 1942 and 1946, except for Obama.
There you go. But on ICE as Gestapo, I mean.
Oh yeah. I mean, they are like the Gestapo. I
the
don't
biggest
think that's a controversial thing to say.
The biggest obstacle to a president attempting to do a authoritarian project right now is not Congress, is not the courts, as long as they're on your side, which in our present case they are
Mostly, yeah.
Mostly, it's true. But the biggest obstacle is federalism. The fact that actually the president has limited control over the actual police and actual like functions of governance in localities. These are distributed across states and local governments.
And the founders made it that way on purpose.
Yeah. So that's the biggest obstacle. So if you're trying to get around that, and then there are constitutional restrictions on the deployment of military within the U.S. borders and things like that. So like if you're trying to build yourself a power base, you want to build a new sort of paramilitary police force that is accountable directly to you. And that's exactly what they're doing by building up the ICE ranks with huge bonuses and zero background checks or requirements or experience and very little training, and just handing them guns and letting them shoot innocent people on the street in Minnesota. It is, I think, exactly a good comparison.
Yeah. And ICE, I know that abolish ICE got tarred in some ways. It's like a far left phrase, but like ICE was established in 2003. I think the country will be okay. We got we got through 220 some years without ICE.
Homeland Security.
I think we could just get rid of ICE, and I don't think we would be that much worse off. And I think Philip's right. It's like it creates this latent possibility of turning them into this like nationalized police force, and now they're killing citizens. So it's not just about immigration. It goes deeper than that. So I'm very concerned by it.
I hope cities continue to stand up against it in states. Okay, we'll take a couple more here and then we'll wrap it up. Evelyn, again, maybe just quickly, what do you think about the fact that this administration is using its current approach to deportations, despite that there's mostly cost-effective and less traumatic ways? Got that right.
I think at some level, the people that are in charge of this get off in some perverse way on the fact that they're able to do it in the most performative and cruel manner possible. I think that's actually, to the point of the question, I think that's right.
Yeah, because weren't deportations basically the same under Obama and Biden? We're having the same number of deportations, but just now there's this ICE is kind
theatrics.
It's theatrics,
humiliation, and just performative violence.
Yeah, terrorism.
Yeah.
That's a good word to describe it.
It is. They're terrorizing these communities.
Yeah.
I don't use that word lightly, but okay, we'll wrap it up with
horses.
Yes, I wanted to wrap it up with horses again. Thank you again for your support here. I read an idea that modern government moves so slowly that 2-term limits means the president can't make any permanent, meaningful changes. Maybe this is a dangerous idea in our current moment, but I'm curious what your thoughts are in it. I mean, that's the whole Constitution. Like the Senate, I think more than anything was designed for slow change. You don't want, because things can get crazy really quickly, and you want a part of government that's kind of taking their time and really thinking through and debating things before they make any changes. I think it's primarily the Senate.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I would rather create ways like cutting red tape from within the bureaucracy. So not like cutting red tape as a form of deregulation, but unshackling sort of government itself a little bit in terms of being able to pass an agenda and actually see it through in more quickly, rather than extending term limits for the president or the head of state.
Yeah,
making the government a little bit more nimble in some ways and able to say this is the agenda we want to pass. We'll pass it, and then the voters can actually sort of vote on that. The example that I see get thrown around that I love to use myself is that the Biden administration passed this rural broadband program, and it just barely ever got off the ground because it was just, there were too many veto points. And it's well, then they couldn't run on it. They couldn't say anything. They couldn't deliver. And so I think instead of giving the president more time in office, I'd say, what if we could just find a way to make things a little faster, right? I don't know.
I mean, are you for unitary executive theory? Because honestly, there's arguments both left and right wing, I think, for that. Unitary executive theory, for those who don't know, that is the idea that you remove these bureaucratic shackles because right now the president can't just a lot of times do what he wants because he has to go through many hoops and let's listen to experts before he can proceed.
Yeah. I'd like to see Congress write laws
Yes.
that can actually be acted on faster.
Well, I mean that's the argument too. Like
yeah,
that Congress would actually do its job
Yeah.
and actually be
Absolutely.
more legitimate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I just pretty much echo your sentiment. I think the big challenge, I think we're sort of missing the forest for the trees here. Sorry, can you pull it back up? Because I wanted to. Oh, good. Just that orange one right there.
Okay.
Yeah. 2-term limits mean the president can't make any permanent, meaningful changes. How can we make it so the president can do more? I mean, for me, it's like the president doing more should not be the objective right now of reform.
It should be Congress.
It should be Congress doing more.
Yeah.
And so I don't really think of it as a problem. I think we just have this issue where it is a sort of built-in difficulty with presidential systems because people are liable, if there is an executive figure, to look to the executive figure to solve the problems and to address things. And when they do that habitually, they then want to empower that executive with more ability to do more things because they want someone to just fix the problems. But that's sort of why I don't like a presidential system. Whereas if we had a parliamentary system where the executive is a member of the legislature and selected by the legislature, you're looking to the legislature to do things. You're not looking to one man to empower with more and more and more power. And so it probably less term limits or longer terms would give the president more power. And that's kind of why I think it would be a bad idea, I don't want to say. But
yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. As far as the legislative branch has lost power steadily throughout American history, particularly the last 4 decades.
Yeah.
And the president's kind of filled that gap out of almost necessity. The president is the symbol, the figurehead in many ways, kind of like the queen is in England, king. Sorry, rest in peace. Like other countries, like most other democracies are parliamentary, aren't they? Like at least in Europe.
In Europe,
especially the ones that have survived.
The ones that are doing the best.
Right.
And so, we have a lot to learn from them. But anyway, it's been about an hour. We're going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
And I want to finish by, again, thanking you two for coming to my tiny little studio.
It's a great studio.
This was so fun.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to do it in person.
We're excited for the videos coming out.
And look forward to our collaboration. We are going to both release videos ideally at the same time at the end of the month. The last Friday.
The 30th, January 30th. Yeah,
January 30th. My video will be covering why the 2020s are the 1890s. And your video
will be covering why multinational corporations are maybe the biggest political challenge that we face in the current times.
Well summarized. And subscribe to Spectacles. Do it now.
And if you're here, you better be subscribed to Mr. B. So, otherwise, what are you doing?
Yeah, you could do that too. All right, bye. Thanks for joining us. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.